I'm over talking about the lack of diversity. I'm over it now.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, okay, what do we
do some stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's
Bias for action.
Exactly. Let's start doing stuff.
Brilliant. Are you well?
I'm well.
Good. I'm very, very well. And I hope everybody who's watching is well. Welcome to another issue of Pitch Black Magazine. As always, we've got another great guest for you. Today's guest is a lady called Elizabeth Solaru. Now, Elizabeth, she wears a number of hats. She's an author, she's an international keynote speaker, and she's also an award-winning entrepreneur. She runs something called Elizabeth's Cake Emporium.
Yes.
And also luxury in diversity. So yes, we are just so excited to bring you this episode. Elizabeth is an amazing person, and we're going to just talk about her life. We're going to talk about her business, and we're going to talk about the journey to now. So let's welcome Elizabeth Solaru.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
We're good.
We are very good.
Yeah. Thinking about scrolling through Elizabeth's Cake Emporium today. Yes.
Yeah. We in preparation for this time with Elizabeth, we were scrolling through her cake website. Yes. And we were drooling. You have the most amazing cakes.
We were drooling.
Elizabeth.
You were drooling. I was.
You were drooling.
Maintaining my posture.
Don't lie now. You were drooling. So, Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm really excited to have a chat with you today. And I do get that reaction a lot about my
I was amazed at the variety of flavors.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I see cake as a medium to kind of express myself and help people express themselves through flavor. And I don't believe when it comes to cake, flavor has to be boring. I believe you can think outside the box, and I usually talk to clients even about their childhood flavors, and it's not unusual to do a bubblegum cake or a Coca-Cola cake or something. So honestly, there are at least 1,000 flavor of cake out there that I think people should definitely try.
And what type of cakes are we talking about here? Just give us a flavor of the type of cakes you make, and possibly for the types of people you make them for.
Right. Okay. So I call myself I say I fell into luxury when I just wanted to make cakes, to be honest. And I've been really fortunate to make cakes for some of the most well-known and not so well-known ultra high net worth individuals in the world. I've made cakes for many royal families all over the world. My cakes have been in deserts or palaces. My cakes have been flown out around the world. I've traveled the world as well. Sometimes if I'm lucky enough, I will accompany the cake and set it up and that sort of thing. So I would say typically I make cakes for people who are looking for something different, or who feel the cake should be the centerpiece of their celebration. So that's the kind of cakes I do, and those are the kind of clients.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Okay. When we grow up, we want to get some of your cakes. we're not quite there yet. That is absolutely fantastic. So let's go back to the very beginning. Tell us a little bit about Elizabeth Solaru, your background, where you grew up. And you said you fell into luxury. Yeah. We'd love to hear the story of how that happened.
Right. Okay. So I'll give you a potted history. born in the UK. My parents met and got married in the UK as students way back when. And then they had me, my brother, my sister. And then when I was about 10 or thereabouts, got taken back to Nigeria.
Okay.
And that was a culture shock, because I remember, the only thing I remember very well was my tongue being on fire because the food was spicy. But I loved Nigeria in those days. Was completely different.
Okay.
It was more community focused, the values of hard work, of striving for excellence was very, very deeply ingrained. My parents in particular were very, very hardworking. My dad, after his engineering degree, he went to work for the Ministry of Works and Housing. My mother became an insurance broker. So from both of them, I learned different things. So from my mother was the most incredible, amazing networker ever. And she networked differently. With her, she networked through gatekeepers. So the middlemen were her speciality. And my father, on the other hand, he was very much about principles. It was very much about serving the government and making sure that whatever construction that he was involved in was to the highest standards. So a lot of national projects he worked on. Even when he worked in the UK, he worked for Kensington and Chelsea Council, and he was an engineer, and he actually worked on big projects like maintaining the London Bridge, or he literally worked on nice projects actually before, and that was what gave him the motivation to join the Ministry of Works and Housing. So we went back. I went to boarding school for about a year or so before I then went to, because I was, boarding school wasn't for me. I remember my parents coming to get me out. I literally, just with the clothes I stood on, nothing else was taken. It was like, get in the car, you're not thriving here. So went to normal school, went to university out there, and I studied microbiology, and which was my BSc. And then I did an MSc in medical microbiology and parasitology. And when I was 22, I came back to the UK. And I remember I stayed with an aunt. She was an angel, absolute angel of a woman. Stayed with her for a number of months, and then got my first proper job, which is as a trainee scientist. I literally walked into Moorfields Eye Hospital, and I asked to speak to the microbiology manager, and he came out, and I said, look, I just want to work in a lab. I'll clean the floor, I'll make cups of tea, I don't care what I do. And he said to me, wait there. And he went in and he photocopied all trainee jobs in the UK. There was a particular journal, and I wouldn't have been able to get hold of that journal except if I were a member. So he just went, photocopied, and gave me all the photocopies. So that was a really, really lovely act of kindness.
Yeah.
And in those days, you had to call to get an application form. So it wasn't like now where you can go online.
Yeah.
So, and I was working. I remember in a company, very tiny company. I was a catering assistant, and the manager said to me, "You can use the company phone. Just use the phone to call and get the application form sent to you." And I did that. Again, another act of kindness.
Yeah.
That's how I landed my very first proper job as a trainee microbiologist with St Mary's Hospital in Paddington.
Wow.
And I remember telling my mum, and she was so excited. She was like, "Oh my God, that's where the Queen has her babies." And she remembered the name of I think the name of the consultant, Mr. Pinkerton or something.
Okay.
Yeah, my mom has this memory. So she, oh my God, so worked
as in the consultant who treated the Queen.
To the Queen.
Wow.
To the Queen.
Impressive.
So again, worked at St Mary's, and then I left. I went to work at Great Ormond Street Hospital.
Okay.
And that was again another really great hospital. I worked there for a while. And then it was a conversation with a colleague, because in those days we did rotations in the lab.
Yeah.
So you go to different sections for 3 months at a time or 2 months at a time or something. And I remember chatting to a colleague, and every day for the last month, all she talked about was what she was having for dinner for that day. And I remember talking about courgettes, and I'm like, God, I'm too young to die a lab rat. I'm too young for this. So, and I thought, that's it. I've got to get out of here. And
especially coming from the type of spicy food that you've been having in Nigeria.
Like, no, not courgette.
Courgette.
No, courgette. So but there were other factors as well. So it wasn't just that, to be fair.
Okay.
So I remember resigning. I didn't have another job to go to. I made 2 decisions. I would resign, and I don't know, I just had this thing about maybe I should go and do something with business, but I had no clue. But I thought, let's do what many Nigerians do. When you want to do something new, you go and study some more. So I decided to apply for an MBA. And I chose a business school, which was not too far from where I lived. And I thought, so I resigned. And then a couple of days later, the phone in the lab rang. I picked up the phone, and it was an agency going, would you like a job? Now, normally we just put the phone down because they do cold calling a lot.
Yeah.
This time, the guy was shocked when I said, actually, mention it, maybe. So, and then he got me my first locum job.
Okay, good.
I ended up working in different labs all around the country, and I was doing my MBA at the same time. But the type of MBA I did it at weekends.
Right.
So Saturday, Sunday, full days, instead of doing it during the week, which was the executive MBA. So it was. I learned a lot. It was fun, and through a series of networking and asking and cajoling, I got a job with a business school as their head of MBA careers. But I then leveraged that job to get another job in the city as a headhunter. And that, you know, long story. I'm not going to bore you, but I was networking. It was approaching people, and it was learning to take rejection. I mean, you know, rejection. It's, you know, somebody saying no to you is great because it means you get through the no's quicker, and you know, and then you move on to your yeses. Yeah. So, got my first job as a headhunter. Really, really loved it. Really enjoyed it. And while I was doing that, I was headhunted by the Cabinet Office to set up, help set up and run a leadership program for women, ethnic minorities, etc., so people can get fast-tracked into senior positions. So I did that, and while I was doing that, got headhunted to do another headhunting role, and so spent quite a few years as a headhunter. And then 2008, the bubble burst in the city, financial crisis, blah, 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 subprime loans, And then because the company I worked for, they had a leaderboard. So if you met your targets, you were at the top. You didn't meet your targets, you were at the bottom. I was never at the top or the bottom. I was somewhere comfortable in the middle, but I kept seeing myself drop. So I knew the conversation was coming. The conversation came. But prior to that, because of the stressful nature of headhunting, I would bake because secretly, deep down in my soul, I always wanted to be a baker because I got my first baking book when I was about 11, 12, and it was a friend in school that gave me my first book, and I couldn't believe that simple ingredients led to something so delicious. So I started baking then. I used my mother's old pots, I used tins, and because again, in those days, you know, baking tins were not something you kind of, and the oven was for storage because in many African homes, we don't really bake. So I did bake up till about 16 or 17. Of course, I had to focus on my studies and do my A levels and get into university.
Yeah.
So I started baking again, and my colleagues at work was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing, amazing, amazing." So once I left that job, I was able to say to myself, "Okay, I need to do this full time." Milestone birthday as well. I need to make it work. And then I started baking, and again, series of events led to me meeting a TV producer.
Okay.
He came to a wedding show, and he actually came to film flowers. He literally came because he was invited by a florist to film flowers. But when he filmed that florist, he felt the stand I thought was the most beautiful there.
Okay.
But to him, he was like, it's all white. There's no color.
Yeah.
So he then went round looking for other florists. And there was a lady next to me, a black florist, and he just loved her work. So he said to her, I need you to get your stand in order, and I'll come back to film in 15 minutes with my crew. So she said to me, oh my God, Elizabeth, what do I do? And I said, right, this is what you do. You put this in front, you put that at the back. So between us, we made this stand look amazing. He came back, he filmed, and then he left. So, and I just went to watch a fashion show, and then I heard somebody screaming, Elizabeth, he's come back for you. He's come back for you.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Ran back to I literally ran back to my stand, and then he started filming my cakes. And then he said, actually, I'd like a chat with you as well. And he was asking me what are cake trends, and of course I had no idea, but I knew I was saying something, but I didn't, So he said actually that when he filmed the lady next to me and he got back in the van, he just couldn't. He just said, I have to do something with that. He just kept thinking about the cakes.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So this is how. So this guy, and the reason I mention him is because he then became so important in terms of exposure.
Yeah.
So he then had this idea to do a cake show. And I maintain that there's a famous cake show, not going to say who it is, used to be on the BBC, now on Channel 4. Famous cake show. He was the originator of the idea. I believe they took the idea from him because he had this idea to bring together some of the best wedding cake makers in the country, and we will compete for an opportunity to make a cake for a number of couples. So each cake maker said you competed in 3 different categories. And I remember on the day of the filming, my driver and I, we were like, oh my God, imagine if I just won. And that's because when he asked me to be a part of it, I said to him, I'm not a proper baker. I'm actually a headhunter. I'm moonlighting. This is my side hustle.
Side quest.
Side hustle.
So I said to him, I gave him a list of the best cake makers in the UK. And I said, this is a list of names. Go talk to them rather than me. And he said, no. I really want you involved. I'm like, oh my God. And of course, my sister in her usual supportive fashion, she said, as long as you don't disgrace the family. Usual supportive fashion.
That's it.
So I remember the day of the filming. It was an estate home, did the filming. And I was the most shocked. I won 3 out of 3 challenges. And he then put the program on wedding TV because social media wasn't a thing in those days. So it was on wedding TV on YouTube. And then that was how, boom, everyone within the wedding community, they kind of like, oh my God, it's Elizabeth. And then that was the first big break. And my second big break was obviously started the company, left my, my old firm, started Elizabeth's Cake Emporium. And I thought, right, I've got to make money. What do I do? And I don't know anyone. So I tried calling a few wedding planners and they all were like, gave me the, thumbs down. So desperation, I took the yellow pages because in my headhunting role, we were told to do 100 calls a week. Outside of interviews, outside of candidate reports, outside of normal networking, you did your 100 calls a week.
And we're talking cold calls here.
Cold calls. So you don't know, as in literally. So you got to get past, you got to get to a CEO and get past maybe 3 PAs. Yeah. Because some CEOs have 3. So you've got to get past all 3 to get to the CEO.
Yeah.
So, and I thought, right, okay, I've done that. I've got some, so I took the yellow pages and I started calling. I remember that day, I was just banging out calls. And then one call late, a couple of calls, in. And then I called this number, and a young girl, and there was nothing about the name of the company to tell me who they were. Yeah. It was like literally party planners. That was what they were called.
Yeah.
So it could be anybody. Yeah. So young girl picks up the phone and she goes, "Do you make cupcakes?" And I'm like, "Of course we make cupcakes." We do now.
The answer is always yes.
We do now. And then I said, and also a trick I learned was that you then say, "I'm going to be in your area in the next 3 days. Would you mind if I drop some samples?"
Okay.
So I said that to her, and she was like, "Yes, of course, we'll be delighted." So again, did the samples, took the bus, because obviously dead broke, took the bus and went and dropped this, and the one thing I learned, and again, this was a sign of the times. I just kind of felt, okay, black lady, will they take kindly to my face? So I need to think, I'm going to be honest here. So I thought, okay, what I'll do is I'll just say delivery from Elizabeth. I won't tell them I'm Elizabeth.
Okay.
Delivery from Elizabeth. So I delivered and got on the bus. On my way back, I then got a call on my mobile saying, "Lady Elizabeth wants to see you." And I'm like, "Who's Lady Elizabeth?" But I was like, okay, I'll come back. So I hopped off the bus, went back. It so happened that the company was actually, the owner of the company is Lady Elizabeth Anson, the late Queen's cousin.
Yeah.
The only one who literally hugs her and doesn't, and calls her by name. And it was her. At the time, I didn't know that. And she was like, "Oh my God, these cakes are delicious. They look amazing. They're exactly what I'm looking for." And she ordered 250 on the spot.
Fantastic.
And wrote me a check on the spot. Now, what I didn't realize was that it was cheap. That was what. I priced I talk about this, when we get to it, when I talk about my coming book, I talk about pricing in the luxury sector. And so obviously it was cheap. I was like, wow. But for me, it was, one, it was a massive order. So I was so delighted.
I know.
Two, the check was a private check, the first ever I've ever seen in my life. It was a check from the private bank Coots. Like, oh my God. So, I'd heard of the bank, but you only read about it in the papers or something. But this was a real life check. To my regret, I should have photocopied it. But I didn't. I was too poor not to cash it. So I had to cash it. So yeah. And now if the story ended there, that would have been lovely. Yeah. But she did something that really was kindness personified. She then wrote me a handwritten letter saying, "Delicious cakes, you were one of 3 cake makers that we actually used for that event. Your cakes tasted the best." And she said to me, "You can use this testimonial on all your marketing." So her name on all my marketing opened certain doors.
Absolutely.
I believe. So that was how it all started.
Yeah.
That is amazing. Because Elizabeth, when you started giving your history, microbiology, medical degrees and masters and business, and it was like, and you're making cakes, yeah. And I was waiting for the point where it flipped into or transitioned into the cake making, but it sounded like it was there right from an early age, from the beginning, and all of these skills, they just marry beautifully with all of this. And I'm just waiting for Elizabeth to say when she's going to be in our area.
That works. That absolutely works.
Yeah, it works. And I think again, it's about resilience.
Yeah.
Again, she could have said, I also think that when you take a chance, obviously you don't know if it's going to work or not, but at least take the shot, shoot your shot. You never know.
Yeah.
And I loved the fact that, again, and this is what I find, that certain people, and sometimes we build these things in our heads, will people like me? Will they not like me? Will they? And meanwhile, they don't care, as long as, and I find with certain high-end clients of mine, it's not even an issue. Certainly, as long as you provide what they know, that for you to get to them, you're good at what you do. So
absolutely.
So that means you've been vetted already. You've been pre-selected, pre-vetted, so you're fine. So I think sometimes we worry too much.
I think so. I think essentially, in our experience, they usually want two things. One is authenticity.
Yeah.
You being authentic, and number two, that you deliver.
Yeah, the product or the service.
Once you do those two things, then anything else that happens that doesn't quite go in favor of you is somebody else's problem, not yours.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Yeah, it's interesting when you talked about the way your mom networked in terms of gatekeepers, because you've had some wonderful opportunities that you've referred to as kindness there, and it's those gatekeeping real changes that so many of us would just be, oh goodness me, it would give such a boost to a lot of the businesses that we were involved with.
Okay. So you've got your first order, you've got an absolutely impressive endorsement. It can't be belittled how important that was. What happened next?
Right. So the next few years, about 5 years, I tried to shoehorn my services into the middle market. So I remember in those days I would pitch. My pricing was not that, because I tried all sorts of pricing. So I tried the one going around the cake industry was what I call the cost plus. So it was a cost of your ingredients plus whatever. That obviously wasn't going to work because it didn't factor in labor and a bunch of other things. I tried another one, which again, that didn't work. So after I went through about 7 different models, I landed on what I call my value plus. So 2013, so I left my job 2008, around 2008 or 11 or something. 2013, I remember very distinctly thinking, I can't survive. This is not going to work for me. So I then doubled my pricing and I waited, because 2013, another mini dip in the economy. Not as bad as what we're experiencing right now, but there was a slight dip. So I did the opposite of what many people were doing. Many people were offering what they would call a value line or what a basic line. I said, no, I'm not doing that. So I doubled my pricing and I waited.
Brilliant.
And I overnight, it looked like I lost about 80% of mine. But then again, it was about losing the people that were never your clients to begin with. And that's when I saw an upturn. So then a couple of things happened. I, again, through networking, I did lots and lots of collaborative shoots. There's a guy called Preston Bailey. He's one of the best florists in the world. He's absolutely incredible. And he featured one of my cakes as his mood board because it was because there's something called Pantone Color of the Year. I'd created the cake maybe a year before or something. For some reason, I always have an instinct or a sense. So I would create a cake, and a couple of years later, 5 years later, it'll be all the rage. So I created this cake, and then he used it, and then I started getting calls. Oh my God, Elizabeth, people. So that was great. And then I did a couple of collaborative shoots. Again, that kind of, gave me a lot of and then social media happened. Got on social media, and then through social media, networking with quite a few wedding planners, and then the ultra high net worths getting married, and people, love to show off. So that's how it kind of like started. And then I did a couple of other things as well, again, networking. And that landed me my first royal client, apart from Lady Elizabeth. And then I started landing more royal clients. It just kind of like snowballed from there. So so that was what that's how I would roughly describe the process. It's not as straightforward as that, but that's how I would describe the process. And then along the way, because I always believe you should network on 3 levels. So you network with people who are where you want to get to, you network with your peers, and then you network with people I call rising stars. And networking with some of the rising star wedding planners, being encouraging and telling them, you can do it. When they do shoots, I'm giving my best to their shoots. And again, I will do shoots and one of the cakes will go viral. So just making sure that I do something that really stands out, because when they ask me to do shoots, they expect me to turn up with 1 cake. I sometimes turn up with 3. So they've got options, because I kind of have and usually I will do the cake they want, the cake I think they should want, and 1 wild card cake. Because I learned that from my headhunting days, because when a client comes to you and goes, find me this kind of candidate, but but once you hear about the organization, once you know the personality, you're saying to them, you want this type of candidate, but that's not going to be good for your organization. So you know the fit. So you shortlist what they want, and then you throw in a couple of wildcard candidates. So I kind of used again the same principles. I just transfer. So that worked as well. So there was a lot that happened, and then when my business was about 10 years, that was when I wrote Opulencia, because I recognize the power of a book to elevate your brand and let you be seen as an expert. So there was that as well. And social media is great. You can have thousands of followers, but sometimes you need something more tangible.
Absolutely.
To cement your status. So I always say to people, once you've been doing a business for about 5-10 years, start thinking about the expert status, the legacy, that sort of thing.
Elizabeth, can I ask, with the shoots where you're taking along 3 cakes, are you taking because I've looked at your work, it's beautiful. Opulencia is the word, the golds, the edible gems, all that sort of thing. So for a shoot where it's not part of an actual event where people are going to be eating the cake, do you take a decorative dummy, or do you take the full cake for them to have the full experience?
Right. I mean,
the work.
I make sure that one of them is a full cake.
So
because sometimes people want to cut into it, because when you're doing photographs, you don't know what's going to catch. So I always like giving people options and also shoots are a fantastic way of networking with the venue, with the planner, with the florist, with the photographer. So it's always nice for them to have edible treats that they take with them. So I always they know I bring stuff. There's I don't tend to do shoots anymore, but I did one fairly recently, and there wasn't a real cake. And because I'd worked with a florist and other people before, and the florist was like, oh my God, why didn't you bring anything? Blah, blah.
You made them all hungry, and then
and she was describing to the
I don't blame her.
Oh God, Elizabeth will bring this and she'll bring that, and I'm like, guys, and the only reason was because I had my event, my Diversity in Luxury Awards was literally in a couple of days, so I was really focused on. So I had to find the time to to do so it was a bit, but I would always encourage people, even if it's just for collaborative purposes. Try and give people some experience
Yeah.
Give them that experience,
Yeah.
even if it's a pretend, because you never know. And people,
Hey.
so I firmly believe that. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you mentioned luxury and diversity, which we'll come on to, but you mentioned that word I've never heard of before I started researching, or we started researching, opulencia. So tell us a little bit about that word, and of course the book that you wrote, which encapsulates, what you do, luxury cakes, etc. So what is opulencia?
Right. Well, good question. When I had the idea to do the book, I thought of people like Beyonce and Madonna and Sia, Lady Gaga, and I thought one word, because I believe you got to think laterally.
Yeah.
It was a book I was going to self-publish. I was trying to find an agent, trying to land a book deal, but it didn't quite work out. And in fact, I was burned a few times. Long story, not going to go into that. But I thought, okay, so let me take this. What would I do? Forget it's a book. If it was a business or whatever, what would I do? So I thought, first thing I would do is brand it.
Yeah.
So I decided I want to call it a name, one word, but I didn't want it to be an English word, and I wanted it to be sort of slightly exotic. So, and people always said, your cakes are memorable. They're very opulent. They're memorable. So I thought, okay, how about I look at the variations of the word opulent? So opulencia, it means opulent. In Portuguese, it's in Italian, Spanish, and it's a word that as soon as you hear it, you kind of understand without understanding.
Yeah.
But I call it that. So that was the first thing I did. Another thing I did, I thought I wanted it to stand out because when you look at the Amazon book recommendations, you've got these little squares at the bottom of whatever you buy. And I wanted a color that would pop. Many cake books or many cake books tend to be pastel or pinks or and then they tend to have a photo of the person on the front, or if you're a celebrity, or a photo of a cake on the front.
Yeah.
And I hesitated. I didn't want that. So I thought, I'm just going to make it a plain book. I'm just going to go the opposite of what everyone's doing. Make it a plain book, but let the color, use a bit of gold. And I was lucky enough to find a book company. They create these incredible books. So I worked with them, and I wanted something, because I love libraries. I wanted something old, like these old books with the leather, with the colors. And I thought, okay, so I just had all that, put all that into my oven, and out came opulencia.
Wow.
So that was how I did that.
And the cakes that are actually featured, are they all of your favorites or your ultra high-end clientele?
That's a great question, because it brings me to something that happened. So the intent was that I was going to create this amazing range of cakes for the book. It was going to be a project, blah, blah, blah. And I started that, started doing that. And I had an agreement with a photographer, and I fulfilled my end of the bargain. And unfortunately, those images were held to ransom. The person gave me conditions. You've got to do this and that. And I'm like, nope. But I said, actually, I remember saying to her when we had lunch, I said, burn those images. I don't want them. So I kind of cut off my nose to spite my face, and I, left the lunch. Then obviously I was thinking, oh my God, what do I do? I've literally shot myself in the foot here. So went to bed, and then I woke up, and then I had a solution. So I literally went to all my photographers, everyone who's photographed my cakes.
Okay.
And I said to them, would you mind if I use your work in my book? Got their permission and blah, blah, blah. But the learning for me was that when somebody photographs your work, the copyright does not belong to you.
Yeah.
Copyright, it belongs to the photographer. So from then on, if I do any work with any photographer, they've got to sign a release to say I can use that in my subsequent work. So that was a massive learning for me. So those cakes were my favorites. So some of them were actual like client, and some of my clients were really flattered. They were like, "Oh my God, my cake's going to be featured." So there I was.
And that's probably the best way.
It was the best way, and I had wasted about 18 months on that project that nothing came out of. So I've got these images sitting somewhere. I don't even, obviously not use them in years. And so that was how my book came about.
Fantastic.
Good stuff.
Opulencia. I like it.
Opulencia.
I like
Very
it. I like it. I like
Very
it.
opulent.
You know exactly what it is the minute you hear it. You don't have to think too much. Which is the beauty of branding.
Yeah, but then I actually tested that name, because the funny thing was I was dead set on another name. I really wanted the other name, and I tested it, and everyone hated it.
Really?
I literally hated it. But then I said, okay, how about Opulencia? And they loved it. I thought Opulencia was pretentious, but everyone else loved it. So it just goes to show.
Everybody likes a little bit of Opulencia.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you need to listen to what your audience wants.
It's easily recognized. It really encapsulates luxury, opulent, indulgent, and it works. It absolutely works. So you've done that. You're making some really popping cakes. I like that. And then you looked at the industry and thought, I guess I don't see many people like me.
I'm guessing.
And you decided to do something about that called luxury, diversity in luxury. Tell us about the journey towards that.
Okay, that's a great question, actually, because I was coasting along, minding my business, being happy in my cake world, and then the pandemic hit. So all the clients that usually come to the UK didn't come, because I have a lot of clients from abroad. They couldn't come to the UK. We were stuck here, they were stuck over there. And then we know what happened in 2020 with George Floyd. Lots of people posting black squares, lots of companies promising to do better, be better, and lots of companies hiring chief diversity officers that had no power. And I just thought to myself, because in 2020, a lot of people, I just felt, and again, people were coming to me, they had difficulty navigating. They didn't know if their businesses were going to survive. So there was a lot of uncertainty. So I just started, I remember joining Clubhouse, and I was looking for...
That thing is still around?
Yes, still around.
Wow.
I obviously have not listened to Clubhouse for years now, but 2020 was a perfect time for Clubhouse. And I remember looking around for luxury rooms and looking around for business rooms. So rooms that talked about business and better still, luxury business. And I couldn't find one. So I started one. And then people started asking me to talk. So I did quite a few online seminars, webinars. I talked a lot on Clubhouse around the luxury industry, etc., etc. And then I found another Black guy who based in Canada, and we started Luxury News Weekly. So every week,
brilliant,
a recap of all the news in the luxury space. Again, still no diversity. And then I remember I just said to myself, well, surely there's got to be diversity. So I did a Google search, and I came across an article written by a professor, Penn State University or something in America, and she derided the fact that there's no diversity in luxury, And I thought, well, surely that can't be the case. So I then said, okay, let me see if I can set something up. And then last year, kind of pulled everything together, got the right people involved, got my judges, got everyone together. Because again, the pandemic led to my coaching business, which, so, I coach people on running their business, leveling up on how to get those high-end clients, some of the tricks and tips that I use. It then kind of led to the Diversity in Luxury Awards, which everyone just loved it. Again, like opulencia, which I didn't, I wasn't particularly, everyone was like, oh my God, this is an amazing idea. So I knew then I had something on my hands, and I just literally reached out to a number of brands. So reached out to Chanel, Burberry, Selfridges, and then also reached out to, because I wanted it to be a global thing.
Good.
Because I didn't want it, because sometimes people can be very reductive. They turn it into a black and white issue or a gender issue. No, it's not that. Because the one thing I noticed in luxury is that a majority of the buyers are people of color.
Yeah.
Majority of the buyers, and also relative to income.
Just to clarify, that represent the luxury houses.
The luxury, no, as in the buyers, also not buying for the houses, but customers. So the customers.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay.
Spending money.
So
right.
Especially relative to income, a lot of people that buy personal goods, etc. So to give you an example, the UK government, because they abolished, the VAT, getting your VAT back if you're an outside visitor, it's estimated that the UK has lost £11 billion in revenue because people are staying away. They're not coming to the UK like they used to. And especially a lot of the Chinese clients are not, they're like, I can go to Paris and Milan and it's cheaper. So why would I want to buy from the UK and I'm not getting my VAT back? So it's issues like that I see as person of color. And I've also noticed that there's a shift in luxury narratives as well, because many people buying luxury are questioning. They're like, so where's my money going? What are your values? What are your principles? So et cetera, et cetera.
You're so right. You're so right. Because prior to that conversation starting, most people were just so pleased to be able to afford a luxury brand. They didn't question anything to do with the supply chain, for example. It was just, I've got Chanel. And that for them was the outcome. Whereas you're right, people are now starting to ask the question, okay, how is this product created? Who makes it? Who benefits? I like that.
And it's funny you should say, you mentioned they're happy to get the Chanel. So Chanel, and this is sometimes where luxury brands don't even tell you what they're doing. To give you an example, she's not new, but she was appointed in 2022. The CEO of Chanel, she's Indian, as in Indian origin, a woman of color. And the first thing she did, and again, I monitor appointments across the luxury space because I used to be a headhunter. So for me, I always want to know who's been appointed, why have they been appointed? And that appointment was one of the bravest for luxury because her background, she came from Unilever, and Unilever are not known for their luxury products.
The FMCG.
FMCG. But they were willing to take a risk and appoint her. And her first act was to increase. They have a fund called the Foundation Chanel. The fund was around 20 million euros every year that they give out for the education of girls. So it's specific, and they put a number to it. So many organizations don't give you a number.
No.
So the first thing she did when she arrived as CEO, she increased the amount from 20 million to 100 million euros.
Okay.
Exactly. So I love that. I love that when you put your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So, and to me, that signals she's not, woman of color, fund for the education of girls around the world, and she takes it seriously. It's things like that. So for example, so that was why she was on our shortlist for the Diversity in Luxury Awards.
That's brilliant.
And she won it for leadership and social impact. And there were other examples. There was another organization based in India. No one had ever heard of the school, but they do embroidery for Dior and Hermes, but nobody knows. So that's the kind of thing that's the kind of thing that Diversity in Luxury is highlighting and showcasing. And I love the fact that the awards are based in the UK because, again, some of the people that attended our awards actually flew in. So I had 3 brands flying from Italy. I had a couple of brands flying from the Middle East, a couple from Africa, a couple from the United States. So it's having that global perspective that I felt was absolutely crucial. So when people hear the word diversity, it's not just about what people think it is. Again, for me, the narrative is completely, I just wanted to do a completely different, not different narrative, but, you know, let people understand where this is going and why people were supporting it. So,
And by all accounts, it was a phenomenally successful event, because I heard about the event. A friend of mine started talking about the event, and that's how your name came up. And I believe they were actually at the event, and they were enthusing, you know, about the event, the atmosphere, the venue. They were like, so I came home and I said to Judy, we've got to talk to Elizabeth Solaru, because she's doing some amazing stuff in luxury. Because, you know, sadly, historically, you know, luxury and diversity have been mutually exclusive, and you found a really neat way of bringing it together and highlighting the need for diversity. And we're not just talking about in terms of color and gender, but in terms of background, in terms of supply chain. So you are doing a phenomenal job, Elizabeth. Very well done.
Pioneering, trailblazing.
Very well done.
Yeah.
thank you.
Very necessary.
I can go out and buy my Chanel now without feeling so guilty.
Thank you. But the only thing I would say, and I say, especially, you know, to young people, or if you're buying this product, if you have a brand that you love and support and you're buying the product, when you buy something from them, make sure you have enough money left to buy shares. Don't just be let your consumerism, let it be slightly different. So if you've investigated and their ethos resonates with your ethos, go out and buy shares, because this is about building generational wealth.
Absolutely.
Not just about you consuming, you know, you got the bag, or you got the shoes, or you got the jacket, or whatever it is you've got, and you know you're happy. Make sure you are building yourself at the same time.
Absolutely.
So buy a bag, buy a share. That's my principle.
I love that.
Because when you, I remember MBA class from 20 something years ago, even buying one share, and this is what some reporters do. So if they want to crash an annual general meeting, just buying one share makes you makes you get the newsletters, makes you get the information before the public. So that's what some reporters do. So they buy one share. So if you're buying the product anyway, you might as well buy shares. And I think if we do that, things will change, because we need to recognize the power of our money.
Absolutely
the
right.
background is incredible. So we need to recognize that.
Thank you so much for sharing that, because we one of the things we talk about a lot is helping to move our community from a consumer mindset to a producer mindset. And if you look legacy. At with the whole idea of legacy in baked, because if I planned it, it didn't just come out. Because if you look at somebody like let's look at LMVH, the
LVMH.
Sorry, LVMH, beg your pardon. The premier luxury house on the planet, and that family have consistently been among the top 10 wealthiest people in the world for a number of years, and that's building legacy. And the way LVMH have just built that luxury house, they know what they're doing, and they know how to use our consumerism to create wealth. So I love the fact that you're saying don't just go out and buy the
Yeah.
Hermes handbag. Is that a thing, Hermes handbag?
Hermes, yes, Hermes.
Go out and buy some Hermes share. So your bag might not appreciate, but the shares most certainly will.
Yeah.
And that's how we start level the playing field and start creating true diversity, which is not just tokenism, but you have a right to be there because you are at the table.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Elizabeth highlighted that people of color, we are, diversity. We're buying.
We are. We spend a lot of consumer dollars or pounds.
So
yeah, but then let's take a step back. Historically, when you made it, the first thing you did was try to show everyone that you've made it, and it's not just a black thing. It's an everybody thing. But I think
it's a human psychology thing.
Human psychology thing. Yeah. So again, we all like shiny objects. New shiny objects. There's something in our nature. We love it. We'll run after it, especially as it, and it's the easiest way and the most visual way to signal status.
Yeah.
So it's a signifier, which is great. But the one thing that I feel that we're moving to now is, I love what you said about the Bernard Arnault, his family.
Yeah.
So it's literally a family business where him and his children, but to give them their due. And I think this is something we can do. It's not easy to do, but it can be done. He literally finds luxury brands, undervalued, underpriced, under whatever, and he builds them up, and he, literally sets them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And we just go flocking and we buy. So it comes down to us as well. We need to change our psyche and do the same for black-owned brands.
Absolutely.
Even I have a friend, when she even just a simple thing, Christmas time, she would only buy from black-owned brands.
Yeah,
that is simple and easy to do. So even just doing stuff like that, again. But I believe as well that cross-fertilization, that being able to go to a Chanel, for example. So when I go to Chanel and I'm looking, because right now all I can afford to do is look, but I'm looking differently now.
Yeah.
You go in, you don't, I believe that we should all do this exercise, go into a store like that and look not from a consumer perspective, but from a business owner perspective. So when you walk in, and everything is, every store has been psychologied to death. So walk in, even the supermarket, there's a reason they put sweets near the till.
Yeah.
So the same in luxury stores. When you do the same, they have, again, they do the threes. They do a low ticket item, so anyone can go in and buy a keychain, for example. You might save up for it, but anyone can afford a keychain from Chanel. Then you move on to the next level, might be the handbag or shoe. Then you move on to the next level, which might be the jacket. Then the next level, which might be couture. So if you look at how they, the pricing, the leveling, so there's a lot we can. So yes, I would say to people, you can be a consumer, but just be a smart consumer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Elizabeth, I feel like we're getting a masterclass.
We are, aren't we?
Your whole coaching, the business side. So excellence in terms of products and services that you're involved with, but the advice and the tips that you've learned along the way, you're sharing them as well. And I think our listeners will be very appreciative. There have been some wonderful nuggets as we've been going along.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
if anyone needs, again, I'm going to plug, but if anyone needs, if anyone needs coaching, etc., again, contact me after the show. And I've got many, a number of packages. I do coach businesses. This is something I've done for years, right from when I was a headhunter, when I used to run job hunting workshops for CEOs, right up to now. Same principles, But again, the luxury sector is slightly different.
Yeah.
So so I would welcome anyone who wants to know
Definitely.
more about the coaching side of things.
Yeah.
And I can attest to this because the very first conversation we had, we were on the phone, and you were literally coaching in terms of, have you thought about this? Have you thought about, getting the brand out there this way and putting the package? So, and having thought them through, they make absolute sense. So you definitely know what you're talking about, Elizabeth.
Yeah, what I want to see, because it's my dream, I love seeing people succeed.
Yeah.
And because when I look at people, I always see potential.
Yeah.
I see where people can go. I see how far people can go. And sometimes people don't even see that of themselves.
Yeah.
Because when you've been told, oh, you can't do that, and you think, where are these rules? Where, who makes them?
Yeah.
Where do they come from? Yeah. So.
And also, when you're busy building a brand and building a thing, you are so focused on that thing that sometimes it takes someone who has a different perspective on it, who can have that helicopter and have that long range view to say, okay, this is what I see. Have you thought about X, Y, Z, A, B, and C? So you definitely are a great coach because you've been helping us just through a phone call. So thank you so much for that.
And I mean, just going back to trying out 2 different names for your book, having that perspective and taking those things on board. There's so many wonderful nuggets.
Love it. So you've built this luxury cake brand, and one day we believe we'll be able to afford a birthday cake at least from you, or a wedding anniversary cake, something that says we have arrived. We've got.
We need to buy shares and find out when Elizabeth's in the area.
Definitely.
Some samples.
Definitely.
Samples of the new range.
Absolutely. So you've built Elizabeth's Cake Emporium into a really great business with some exceptional clients. You've also launched now Diversity in Luxury, making a great impact, and the Diversity in Luxury Awards is just a testament to that. You've got this best-selling book out called Opulencia. What's next? Tell us what happens in the next 12 months for Elizabeth Solaru, or beyond.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I do believe in long-term planning, but honestly, sometimes I don't think more, beyond 6 months at a time, because it's way too much. But I know for certain, I'm hoping against all hope, by the summer of this year, I will have my new book out. It's a business book. And this is something I'm very passionate about, because I couldn't believe the stats. Over about 90% of business books are written by men, and maybe 1% or less than 1% are written by people of color. So I firmly believe that we do need to be on those shelves, because we have run businesses, we have been very successful, and we need to get that out there. But this book is slightly different. It's a business book, but I talk about the luxury sector. So I talk about the different types of luxury brands. I talk about the different types of luxury clients, how to find them, how to psychologically engage with them. I give loads and loads of tips, things people might not have thought of, even things like how to use Google to find a luxury client. So, because I believe in practical things that don't cost a lot of money, because many of us, when we start out, we don't have a lot of money. But you do. There comes a time when you do have to spend money, but I tell you how to spend your money wisely and not waste time, energy, like many of us have, in trying to figure it out ourselves. So got the book coming out in the summer. I'm still working on my one word. I have found a word, but unfortunately, I can't use that word because I've got another company has been using it for 14 years. But that's a long story. So the book's coming out. I do have a mastermind in first week of October. It's very intensive, one-to-one, probably might take place abroad, because I believe in taking people away and giving them a lovely luxury experience. So the mastermind is coming up as well. And then I also have my own diversity in luxury power list. So I've looked around the world and I have found the most influential people in luxury around the world. And they're not necessarily people that people think. So just like the awards, where I had a mix of big names, big name luxury brands, as well as brands people had never heard of, but they find out and they go, wow. Again, I'm doing that. So so I've got a few things, and then of course planning for 2025, Diversity in Luxury Awards 2025, and so again focused on sponsorship and partnership for that. So so those are a few things.
Just a few things.
Just a few things. We're really excited to hear about the Diversity in Luxury Power List. We will obviously do whatever we can to kind of shed light on that and provide exposure to that. Of course, we love hearing about the book, because one of the things that we do, we absolutely believe that leaders are readers and readers are leaders. And of course, we do something called spotlighting 10 pages in Pitch Black magazine. So
we're looking forward to the book too.
We're looking forward to the book and also spotlighting. We're certainly looking forward to the awards. We're not quite a luxury brand, but we'd love to cover the awards for Pitch Black magazine. You see that flag right there? Unashamed flag.
That's fantastic. That's good. That's the way it should be.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you can come in as media partner. Why not?
There you go. We're in. Elizabeth, we've absolutely loved. Sorry.
Will there be cake
at the awards?
Yes.
Well, the last one there wasn't.
Okay.
But because I felt there had to be a separation.
Fair enough.
Between the brands, and being the first one, trust me,
I
was so busy organizing. People were RSVPing up till 12 midnight the day before a lunchtime awards. Seriously. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it was
and change the table plan again.
Yeah.
But you know what, I again, maybe because I've done quite a few events, these things happen. And luckily I had an amazing event planner, so between us we were fine.
Well, we're happy to not have cake at the award as long as you'll be in our area in 3 days. As long as you do that, then we're good to go. Elizabeth, it's been so encouraging, exciting, invigorating, enlightening hearing about your story, hearing about how you started from a science background, a talent management background,
so much,
and then falling into luxury and doing some amazing stuff in the luxury sector. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thank you
so much. We've really enjoyed our conversation with you. However, before you go, there is something that we must do. And this is the quick fire dozen. Don't think too hard about it. Just say what comes to your mind. If you want to give us a little bit of an explanation or some narrative around your choice, feel free to do so. So, spotlighting 10. Jollof. Oh no, quick fire dozen. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. Spotlighting quick fire dozen.
Okay.
Jollof
or rice and peas.
Oh, jollof.
Okay. Plantain
or plantain.
Oh, plantain.
Okay. All right. We're going to personalize this for you. Luxury beach holiday
or luxury city break.
Oh, oh my goodness. It has to be a luxury beach holiday, because city break, I can, beach holiday, yeah, it's where it's at. The sand, the sea, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, nice one.
I can just picture.
Okay, this is to the businesswoman in you now.
Okay.
Cash flow.
Or capital appreciation. I missed a line.
Oh, cash is king, so it has to be cash flow. In any business, cash flow, yeah, it has to be.
Okay.
Good explanation as well.
Yeah.
So when you're relaxing, then Netflix or
YouTube.
Oh, I think it has to be Netflix, because Netflix curates your you, and YouTube pushes adverts, and YouTube they push adverts, and YouTube's getting a bit Netflix, because Netflix knows me very well. they curate nicely.
I like that. That's the first time we've heard that insight shared. I like it. Good one. Okay, on to music now.
Yes.
Reggae.
Yes.
Afro beats.
Reggae.
Okay.
Reggae all the way, because grew up 80s. I love my Bob Marley, Peter Tosh,
Peter.
Beanie Man.
Okay.
And also the Notting Hill Carnival.
Okay.
Oh my God, how can you not? So I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like Afrobeats, but sorry, red on reggae.
No, don't be sorry. It's what you like. Love it. Love the explanation. So, with that in mind, listening to music.
Yes.
Listening to a podcast.
Oh.
It's a mean one, isn't it?
It's a new one. Oh dear. I think for me, this is hard. It's so hard. Okay, I'll have to choose music.
Okay.
I'll have to choose music, because I believe music takes you to a different place in your head. Also, as a creative, music helps with my creative process, and it relaxes. And I truly believe that certain sounds are healing as well.
Yeah.
Whereas a podcast, it's all about learning, and I understand that, and I appreciate
head.
But it's more of a head thing rather than a heart thing. So that's why music.
And we just saw a few moments ago exactly what music does to you, because when you were talking about the music, you were grooving. You were definitely.
People are shocked when they see me on the dance floor, because they think I'm this prim and proper person. But with my favorite 80s music, or yesterday, I went visiting someone yesterday, and they had Prince.
Okay. Yep.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? And so again, just so music really, really pushes my buttons. Yeah.
Love it. As the great Bob Marley said, one good thing about music: when it hits you, you feel no pain.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Okay.
Oh, one of my favorites. Dark chocolate.
Yes.
Or milk chocolate.
Oh.
Or white chocolate.
Or ruby chocolate.
Okay, so I would say my favorite chocolate is from a brand called Laderack, and it's a white chocolate with raspberries and strawberries. So it's ruby. I don't like. I love the color. Don't like the taste. Milk chocolate sometimes has too much sugar, depending on the brand.
Agreed.
Dark chocolate sometimes can be too bitter. But as I get older, the dark chocolate I'm finding quite nice. But for me, that particular chocolate from Laderack, and it's on Regent Street, by the way. I mean, the first time I bought it was abroad in Germany, and then they, also was it Switzerland, and then now they have a shop in the UK. It's still online. So honestly,
I think we've had that. It sounds like you've met a kindred spirit when it comes to chocolate.
Oh yes.
And we're not talking about Mars Confectionery here.
No. We're talking luxury.
Okay.
Proper. Even if you only buy it once a year, worth every penny, I believe.
I think we got some when someone visited Switzerland and brought some back from us. Yeah.
And I think
and it was lovely.
I think it was the white chocolate with the raspberry. That was my favorite.
And it's got these little, what do you call it? Nougats?
Little dried, like freeze dried.
Infusions. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Oh, fantastic. I can actually taste that in my mouth now. Let's move on, please. Cakes and chocolates. All right.
All right. Oh, here we go. Stocks and shares.
Or crypto.
Yeah. Oh, I would say, this is a good one, actually. I would say stocks and shares, only because tangible, kind of know what I'm doing. But I find crypto very exciting. I actually created an NFT. In about 3 years ago, I created a $1 million NFT of one of my cake designs.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just, just because I wanted to.
Because you can.
Just because I can. So I find that space very exciting, but I kind of predicted that there'll be a crash, which there has been.
Yep. Yep.
And out of the crash will rise people who know what they're doing, who are serious about it. But you still have a lot of con men, or con people. But only because I don't know enough about crypto, but I do find the space very exciting. Yeah. But I would say, but you can get stocks and shares in a crypto business.
Yeah. Okay.
You never know, a crypto business, of these crypto wallets, they might get floated on the stock exchange.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you can then buy your stocks and shares in that. So and then legitimately you can say you're into crypto.
Yeah. You're hedging your bets, aren't you?
Yeah.
Love it.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so Samsung
or Apple?
Oh, the problem is I've got both, but I would say on balance, I would say Apple.
Okay.
I would say Apple because that was the very first computer I ever saw. I remember seeing in the 80s, seeing an Apple computer and I really wanted to get into it, but it wasn't the done thing for girls to get into coding or anything like that. But I did do, when I remember coming to the UK, I did do a course on coding. I did a C.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because I just found it fascinating. But because, I remember I did a 6-week class and I was the only girl. It was all boy, it was a bit, so that put me off. But if there was a girl in STEM in those days, I would have, that could have been another thing I looked at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So when Elizabeth is thinking about winding down, I'm going to go out.
Some more leisure time.
Yeah, I'm going to do something and, relax myself. Is it a night in
or a night out?
I prefer a night in, so I can Netflix and chill.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do go out, say once a year, it's a proper out.
Okay.
Going out.
Yeah, I hear that.
Properly out, dancing, just having a great time. So on balance, night in.
Okay, brilliant. And then the last one. Now, are you vegetarian by any chance?
No.
Okay, good. We've been burnt by this question before. And the question is, oxtail
or curry goat?
Oh, it has to be oxtail all the way.
Okay.
Oxtail. The only thing, my bugbear right now is the gentrification of oxtail.
I hear that.
The gentrification of oxtail.
It's like
we're telling people hands off, please.
Yeah.
We've loved it for generations. It's cheap. It's healthy. It's gorgeous.
Put your butter beans in.
My favorite as a child was oxtail soup. That was my favorite. So oxtail, I love. So, but now, unfortunately, with all these trendy restaurants, they're getting into oxtail, they're getting into tripe, they're getting into cow foot.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah.
And how could you?
Oh, stop it.
It's like
Oh,
I
stop
didn't
it.
think I'd see Cowfoot come into that
Yeah.
play. I thought
Yeah.
Cowfoot was safe.
Yeah.
I was happy for it to be safe, but the
Yeah.
oxtails, like
Yes.
I mean, I feel now is a good time to say I'm a vegan in transition.
Okay.
So I used to love oxtail. I used to. They don't believe me. They think it's just a fad. This is real. This is permanent. I used to cook cow foot. I used to put it in the slow cooker,
Wow.
and it used to be so delicious. But those were bygone days.
So now you're into you're being a vegetarian, veganism.
I'm a vegan.
That's tough.
Let's just say it's for health reasons.
Okay.
It's not religious or anything. I just find it's better for me in terms of digestion, health, etc. Red meat is tasty. Stop looking at me like that. Red meat is tasty, but it can be a bit hard on the stomach and digestion. So, moving on quickly. Elizabeth, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for opening us into the world of luxury and particularly diversity in luxury. We are just so excited by your journey, and one thing you can be assured of, we will be celebrating you, we'll be cheering you on, and we will be challenging you to push the boat out even further. So well done. We love what you're doing, and we will be supporting you and cheering you on from this side.
Thank you
for all of those wise nuggets and sharing all of that. So much.
Absolutely.
So much.
And we look forward to seeing you in our area in 3 days.
Thank you. I don't think I've ever laughed so much in the podcast. I don't think I've laughed so much.
Good.
This has been amazing. Thank you. You've made it so easy. I feel like I'm just chatting with old friends. So thank you for the opportunity. And also thank you for what you're doing for the community and for the industry as well. Because media, publishing, so tough to break into. And you're doing this to try and showcase people like myself that the mainstream media will, maybe not showcase. So every little bit of media really helps our cause. So thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm here for a chat. I believe that maybe one of these days get together, have a strategy day,
Definitely.
Brainstorm some ideas, just, and I believe this is what we should be doing as businesses in our community. And this is what I've seen in the headhunting world. This is what candidates do. In fact, when I used to run job hunting workshops in those days, the people that came again and again and again were people who had jobs. So they were CEOs, they had jobs. The people who didn't have jobs, they wouldn't come. But the people who already had jobs, because it wasn't just about what I was saying, it was their opportunity to network.
Absolutely.
And people sometimes forget that, because when you've got 300 CEOs in a room, they're in a safe space. They can talk to each other.
Absolutely.
And I believe that this is what us as businesses, this is what we should be doing regularly. And because I'm over talking about the lack of diversity, I'm over it now. I want to talk about, what do we do?
Some stuff.
Exactly.
Let's go. Let's
Bias for action.
Let's start doing stuff.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, we already have an idea as to where we want to take you in terms of a restaurant, just to thank you for being on our show. So thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.